I have to say, even as an atheist, I find something incredibly shocking about people having to show any form of ID to get into a place of worship, and certainly anything that it divides between people who have had a particular medical intervention and people who have not had a particular medical intervention. Are you going to be operating vaccine passports at your church?
No, that's something I'll simply refuse to do. I can't ask people to show up at the door and present to me some sort of proof that they've been vaccinated if they're there to come and meet with God, or to pray, or to just seek some peace and stillness in a difficult and confusing world.
And this is the thing I would have thought for many people who've had a really rough time during the pandemic, whether they've lost a loved one to COVID or to any other disease or problem, or just suffering from isolation, from loneliness, from the stress and strains of this, that actually for many people a place of worship has been a really important part of their life, and people desperate to get back to that. Were you surprised that this came in? Had there been any consultation with church authorities as far as you're aware?
Not as far as I'm aware, no. I mean, I think there's been rumors that that sort of thing might be possible down the pipeline, but it's never been discussed, as far as I know, at any official level. And the Church of England did come out and say last night that they were, in principle, opposed to the idea of vaccine passports, because really it runs contrary to the idea that the church is a home and a refuge for all people.
And that's the thing. And of course, I mean, again, it's not just the Church of England, it's the churches across the board. And we know there are going to be some really difficult issues here for different groups in society. We know that the vaccine take-up in different races and different religions is widely varying. Afro-Caribbean people have something like a sort of 60-65% take-up compared to sort of almost 99% among some white groups. And we know also many Muslims. We know that lots of places in northwest and northeast of this country, you've actually got very, very low take-up in some Asian Muslim communities. We could see a situation where it's easier as a white person to get into the Church of England than it is for a Muslim Asian to get into a mosque. These are very, very troubling scenes that await us, aren't they?
They are, absolutely. I've approached the last 18 months fairly pragmatically. I'm not a scientist or a politician. I don't pretend to be an expert on sort of what we have done or shouldn't have done. And there's still much that we don't know. And so my approach has really just been to go along with the guidance that we've received. And I think that's been important for a lot of people as we've navigated so much uncertainty. But, now we're told that we're moving into this time of more personal responsibility. And yet, at the same time, we're getting this suggestion that vaccine passports would be needed to enter places of worship like churches. And that for me is really a step too far. And I think, just as time goes on, I find myself more and more concerned by the ease with which this government seems to hold on to its power. And again, I don't pretend to have any answers about how things should have been done. But what I see here is something that I see often as I read the Bible. As a priest, of course, that's central to my work, and we see there often that power is dangerous and addictive. On Sunday in our churches, we'll be reading the story of David and Bathsheba, which I think is a fairly familiar story from the Old Testament, story about largely about adultery. But here you have David, this great king of Israel, who the Bible says that God has used him in all kinds of powerful ways to bring a nation together, to lead them into a time of real peace and prosperity. But that power then suddenly goes to his head in a very sort of profound and tragic way. And we have this story of this ugly story of adultery and deceit and murder. And it's just one example of many where power becomes something that you are far too comfortable with far too easily.
Yeah.
And, we can look through history and see the same thing. And I think those lines between, seeking the good of the people you govern and power and control, they become very blurry at times. And I'm worried that that's where we're headed.
And again, and every single government in history, whether for good or for ill, totalitarian, evil, murderous regimes, and often democracies as well, as we've seen, they always say, and I think often believe, that they are bringing controls on our lives for our own good. But often they're not.
And I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, because I'm not in the driver's seat, and I don't know. I certainly wouldn't want to be making those decisions.
No, but I'm afraid I've stopped giving a benefit of the doubt sometime this time last year, I'm afraid. Reverend Dr. Jake Belder, I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much. And thank you.